Centuries before the front-facing camera or the first social media profile, human beings were already captivated by their own image. The ancient Greeks told the story of Narcissus, a man who spent his life searching for a love worthy of his own striking appearance, rejecting everyone who crossed his path. One day, peering into a pool of still water, he finally saw a face he deemed perfect. He didn't know he was looking at his own reflection. Captivated by the image, he stayed by the water's edge. He couldn't tear himself away, even to eat or drink. He died staring into that pool, and the myth says a flower, the Narcissus, bloomed in the exact spot where he fell. Narcissus didn't suffer from a surplus of self-love, but from a total severance from reality, trapped by an illusion he mistook for a living being. Modern psychology recognizes this exact behavioral pattern. We casually throw around the word narcissism to describe someone who is arrogant or highly focused on their appearance, but the science reveals a condition much closer to the original myth. Narcissism operates as an exaggerated sense of self-importance, built as a psychological shield. It creates a destructive mirage that blocks out genuine self-awareness and makes healthy human connection nearly impossible. Psychologists do not map this condition as one single uniform personality flaw. They see a spectrum of complex defense mechanisms, all designed to protect an incredibly fragile ego. The most recognizable manifestation is grandiose narcissism. These individuals are highly outgoing, outwardly confident, and constantly seeking admiration. You will frequently find them relentlessly chasing positions of visibility and power. A healthy leader's drive pushes outward, aiming to create a tangible impact. The grandiose narcissist drive loops right back to the self, aiming strictly to command the spotlight. But there is a second, much less obvious variation mapped underneath: vulnerable narcissism. These individuals might appear quiet, reserved, or even shy. Internally, however, they maintain the exact same intense feelings of entitlement and superiority as the grandiose type. Despite their opposing outward behaviors, both variations share the same psychological vulnerability. They are hypersensitive to criticism. When the real world challenges their internal narrative of perfection, they are easily and deeply wounded. Most people exhibit minor vanity at some point in their lives, but at the far end of the spectrum lies a clinical condition known as narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. NPD manifests as a rigid, compulsive pattern of behavior that consistently disrupts the individual's life and heavily damages the people around them. The clinical markers include an insatiable need for ongoing admiration, a deeply inflated worldview, and a profound lack of empathy. Diagnosed primarily in adults, it affects a very small percentage of the population. In these extreme cases, the carefully constructed false image entirely overwrites the real person. What forces a developing human brain to construct such an elaborate psychological shield in the first place? Current psychological research points to a complex mix of genetic predispositions and specific environmental inputs during early childhood development. One clear environmental trigger is excessive overpraising. When a child is constantly told they are inherently superior to everyone else without having to earn it, they build a baseline of completely unrealistic self-importance. On the exact opposite end, cold or overly controlling parenting can yield a similar result. This harsh environment breeds deep-seated insecurity, forcing the child's mind to manufacture fragile narcissistic defenses just to cope with feeling inadequate. Whether the foundation is built from an excess of unearned praise or a severe lack of warmth, the result is the same. These traits develop as survival mechanisms to protect a deeply insecure core from the outside world. The real danger emerges when that protective shield is challenged or pierced by reality. The psychological fallout is almost always destructive. In personal relationships, the need to protect the ego leads to deep dishonesty and a complete lack of loyalty. In leadership roles, it results in reckless, highly unethical decision-making. And when cornered, the individual often defaults to defensive aggression. Zooming out, we see these traits cluster heavily in certain environments. Cultures that reward self-promotion, individual status, and financial success over community well-being naturally exhibit much higher baseline levels of narcissistic behavior. This inevitably brings up modern technology. It is highly tempting to blame our screens, but social media does not biologically generate these psychological traits from scratch. Instead, social media acts as a massive cultural amplifier. It provides the perfect, consequence-free stage for people to relentlessly project an idealized, highly filtered version of themselves to a global audience. Dismantling these traits and moving toward genuine change is a difficult, often lifelong psychological task. The psychological consensus is that change is possible. With intentional practices like long-term therapy and the active development of genuine empathy for others, individuals can finally begin to break down the false self. The challenge lies in the nature of the condition itself. The required cure, honest, unflinching self-reflection, is the one thing a narcissistic mind is built to avoid. True psychological growth and genuine connection only become possible the exact moment a person is willing to step away from the mirror, drop the illusions, and finally look at who they really are, without the filters.